Once upon a time, we all believed this was a sweet little fairy tale. A girl in a red hood, a loving grandmother, a dangerous wolf, and, at least in the children's books, a happy ending. But the deeper you dig into the origins of this story, the less child-friendly it becomes. Because Little Red Riding Hood is not truly a children's tale. Not in Charles Perrault's version, not in the Brothers Grimm, and certainly not in the even older oral legends that came before. The truth is darker. This story was born long before Perrault polished it for aristocratic salons in 1697. The earlier folk version, sometimes called the Grandmother's Tale, can be traced back to medieval France, with echoes of much older Asian folk narratives, and that ancient tale was never meant to lull children to sleep. It was a cautionary horror story for young women. The Forgotten Origins. The story we know today is actually a fusion of two very different tales stitched together over centuries. Both share a little girl, a grandmother, and a wolf. But the tone, the morals, and the endings could not be more different. Imagine the Middle Ages. A woman bakes bread. She tells her daughter, "Take this fresh loaf and a pot of cream to your grandmother, who lives in the house by the woods." The girl sets off, and on the road she meets the Bzoo. This Bzoo is not just a wolf. In the language of old villages, Bzoo meant werewolf, a shapeshifter, a predator wearing human skin. And the creature asks the girl, "Where are you going? What are you carrying?" "To my grandmother's house," she replies, "with some bread and cream." "Which path will you take? The path of pins or the path of needles?" asks the Bzoo. "I will take the path of pins," the girl answers. "Then I shall take the path of needles," the Bzoo smiles. "We shall see who arrives first. It is a race of doom." Cannibal Feast. The Bzoo runs ahead and reaches the grandmother's cottage first. What happens next is not the playful trickery of children's books. It is pure horror. The creature kills the grandmother, devours her flesh, drinks her blood, crushes her bones. Only a tiny scrap of meat is saved, placed on a plate in the cupboard, and a small bottle of blood is hidden on the shelf. Then the Bzoo slips into the older woman's bonnet and shawl, lying in bed to wait for the unsuspecting child. When the girl arrives, the Bzoo speaks softly. "Pull the latch and come in, my child." She enters, smiling, unaware of what is about to unfold. "Grandmother, mother sent me with bread and cream," she says. "Place them in the cupboard, child. Are you hungry?" "Yes, grandmother." "Then prepare yourself some meat from the shelf, and if you thirst, drink from the bottle." So the girl obeys. She eats the flesh. She drinks the blood. And in the silence, the voices of innocence cry out. A little cat hisses, "You are eating your grandmother's flesh." The Bzoo growls, "Throw your shoe at that noisy cat." The girl obeys. A bird sings, "You are drinking your grandmother's blood." "Throw your other shoe at that wretched bird," commands the Bzoo. Again, she obeys. The child has become complicit. The Bed of Horror. After the grotesque meal, the Bzoo whispers to the girl, "You must be tired from the road, child. Undress and lie beside me, and I will keep you warm." The girl hesitates. "Where shall I put my apron, grandmother?" "Throw it into the fire, my child. You will not need it again." "And my bodice?" "Into the fire." "My skirt?" "The fire." "My stockings and underclothes." "Throw them all into the fire, child. You will need none of them anymore." Piece by piece, she sheds her innocence, feeding it to the flames. She lies in the bed, and now the infamous dialogue begins. "Grandmother, what big hair you have." "It is to keep you warm, my dear. Grandmother, what long arms you have. To hold you tightly, my child. Grandmother, what large ears you have. To hear you better, my child. Grandmother, what sharp teeth you have. To eat you, my child." And then nothing more. No huntsman, no miraculous rescue. The wolf devours her. That is the ending, a brutal, final silence. Charles Perrault in 1697 made sure his readers understood what this story was truly about. He spelled it out with chilling clarity. This was not a children's tale. It was a warning for young women about predatory men. Perrault even wrote a moral in verse, explaining that wolves in society are not only beasts in the forest, they can be men in disguise, using charm, deceit, and sweet words to lure girls into bed. The tale was a social allegory. Being eaten was never just about fangs and flesh. It was about seduction, violation, and shame. A map of fear. Read carefully, and you notice details that children's books always leave out. The grandmother is said to live in another village, not deep in some fairy tale forest, but just one town away. The mother sends her daughter with bread and cream because the grandmother is unwell. The roads are busy with travelers, and woodcutters are nearby. The wolf does not attack immediately, not because he cannot, but because he dares not, for fear of being caught. So he tricks the girl, asking which path she will take. He runs ahead on the short road, while she takes the long one, dawdling, picking flowers, chasing butterflies. When she arrives, the trap is already set. And then comes the detail that most modern retellings erase. She undresses, she lies down. The danger is not hidden, it is explicit. The predator unmasked. The eating is not just about death, it is about corruption, about innocence stolen, about a child tricked into an adult's bed. There are no woodcutters, no brave rescues, only a lesson, one that medieval France intended for its daughters. Beware of men who smile sweetly. Beware of strangers who walk you home. Beware of wolves. Over a century after Perrault, the Brothers Grimm collected and reshaped the tale in their 1812 children's and household tales. This version is far more familiar to modern audiences because it gives us a hero, a rescue, and a triumphant ending. The story begins in a similar way. A girl is sent to her grandmother with cakes and wine. She meets the wolf, who cunningly distracts her while he runs ahead. He devours the grandmother, disguises himself, and waits. The girl arrives. The same chilling dialogue follows. The eyes, the ears, the teeth. But just as the wolf swallows her whole, the story changes. A huntsman passes by. Hearing snores, he enters the cottage, cuts open the wolf's belly, and pulls out both the grandmother and the girl alive and unharmed. The girl then fills the wolf's belly with heavy stones. When the beast awakens, he collapses under their weight and dies. Here, finally, is justice. Here, the predator does not win. But notice the change in message. Perrault's version, the wolf succeeds. The girl is devoured. The lesson is blunt. Beware of strange men, or you will be ruined. Grimm's version, the wolf is punished. The girl survives. The morale becomes more child-friendly. Obey your mother. Stay on the path. Do not wander. In the Grimm's hands, the tale shifts from a warning about sexual danger to a lesson in obedience and discipline. Still, even the Grimm's tale is not gentle. Consider this. The girl and her grandmother themselves gather stones and sew the wolf shut. They do not merely escape, they ensure his death. This image of a predator weighed down with rocks and left to die is brutal, yet it satisfied an audience eager for justice, not caution. It is also worth noting, in some editions, the Grimms added a second adventure. Later, Little Red Riding Hood again meets a wolf, but this time, remembering her lesson, she tricks him and survives without harm. Thus, the Grimms reshape her not only as a victim, but also as a learner, capable of growth. When we trace the journey of Little Red Riding Hood, from medieval French folktales, through Charles Perrault's stark warning, to the Brothers Grimm's sanitized rescue, we see more than just the evolution of a fairy tale. We see how societies rewrite fear. The original oral versions were raw and blunt. They reflected the dangers women faced in real life. Predators, strangers, and men who would use charm to trap and ruin them. Perrault's 1697 version sharpened this lesson into a moral for ladies of fashion. Don't stray from the path, beware of the wolf in human form. Here, the wolf always wins. The Grimm's 1812 retelling transformed the story for children. They replaced caution with obedience, added the huntsman, and gave us a happy ending, where evil is punished and innocence restored. But in this shift, something was lost, the raw, uncomfortable truth. Wolves in disguise. The reason Little Red Riding Hood continues to haunt us is that the wolf is never just a wolf. He is every manipulator, every abuser, every predator who hides behind a smile. And society still teaches us to dress these wolves in softer clothing, to imagine them as bad luck instead of bad people, to comfort ourselves with rescues that rarely comes, to prefer a story with heroes and justice rather than one that acknowledges horror can prevail. Yet the old version refuses to die, because deep down we know it still speaks the truth. Why it matters today? Look around, modern wolves don't wait in the forest. They wait in chat rooms, in workplaces, in crowded cities. They lure not with teeth, but with promises, lies and charm. And just as in the tale, society often looks away, leaving the victim alone with her predator. This is why returning to the brutal origins of the Red Hood story matters. Not because children need nightmares, but because adults need to remember the warning. Perrault did not soften his ending. He wanted his audience, young women at the French court, to feel the fear, to recognize danger before it swallowed them whole. Closing thoughts. So what is Little Red Riding Hood? Not a sweet bedtime story, not a tale of flowers and cakes. It is a mask, behind which lies a scream. A story that teaches us how easy it is to be deceived. And a reminder that not all wolves wear fur. The Red Hood itself is no innocent costume. It is the mark of blood, sexuality and danger. Once the girl dons it, her path is set, and whether she escapes or not depends not on magic, but on vigilance. So remember, the forest is still here, the wolves are still waiting. And the question the tale whispers to us across centuries is simple: will you recognize them before it's too late?